Pues muy buenas tardes de nuevo a
So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for being here at the Academy, and thank you very much to everyone who's following this through our YouTube channel. And to me, it is a great pleasure to introduce our next speakers, the speakers of the evening. We have with us Carlos Tschuschke, my apologies for the mispronunciation probably, and Paul Schleicher, who are going to be talking about these Bad Dinosaurs. It's a Disney success, Netflix success, sorry.
Thank you. Hello, hello. Thank you guys so much for coming down. I'm really sorry that I can't do this presentation in Spanish. When we do another show together, I promise to spend more time on Duolingo and be able to do it better. We're here to give a presentation about Bad Dinosaurs, a show that we spent a couple years working together on. So this is Carlos, as introduced. Carlos is the CEO and founder and producer and creative and all around does everything over at Abel & Baker in Madrid. And my name's Paul, and I am a founder and producer of Snafu Pictures in London. So Abel & Baker is an animation studio, as I mentioned, based here in Madrid. They create beautiful animation for film, television, advertising, all sorts of projects. And Snafu Pictures is a London-based production company where we spend our time developing and producing film and TV projects, but they all have animation in one way or another as sort of a core to the types of shows that we develop and produce. So we're here to share the story of how Bad Dinosaurs came to be and how our two teams came to work together producing it. Bad Dinosaurs is a kids' adventure slapstick comedy. There's 24 episodes. Each of the episodes is 7 minutes long. And in the show on Netflix, those are stitched together into 3-episode chunks, so they become like half-hour episodes. Our target audience, or the target demo, is 4 to 9-year-old kids. When we started working on the show, we were really focused on a slightly higher or a slightly older demographic. But as the show came out, with its non-dialogue nature and the comedy and the colors and brightness and everything, it tended to skew a little bit younger. But I'll get into that a little bit more later on. It's 3D animation, non-dialogue, UK and Spain produced. It started off as a short film on YouTube, or a couple of short films on YouTube by just a small collective of creators. And those short films were done in 2014, and then the show aired in March 2024, so that's about a 10-year journey from start to finish. Just in case you're not familiar with it, we're going to start by showing just the trailer for the show. So that's Bad Dinosaurs. As I mentioned, it aired in March earlier this year. It premiered in 190 countries on the same day and date. It was the #1 kids show quite quickly on Netflix, and it spent 5 weeks in the global top 10 for all series. So it was up there with Three Body Problem, The Gentleman, Baby Reindeer, Ripley, and so that was something that we were very proud of. The reception was quite positive. We got some good trade press. Calling it, one of Netflix's best original kids shows. But more exciting was some of the fun stuff we got to see from kids and fan art and letters that we'd see, or images that were sent to us of kids enjoying the show, dressing up as some of the characters, and even the pets getting involved. Adults and parents on social media also sort of had some pretty good responses. You know, all sorts of it has all sorts of types and all sorts of things that they liked about the show, and as well as adults like James Blunt joking that the show made him miss his concert at the Royal Albert Hall, and some fans even making their love for the show a little bit more permanent. So that's an overview about the show. It gives you a little bit of context, what happened when it came out, the tone of the show. And what we're going to talk about is a little bit of where it all started from. I'm going to talk a bit about the story development, working with Netflix, and everything that we did in London up to the point where we handed over to Carlos and his team to make it look amazing. So the show started with a young group of creators, well, they were young when they started, called Rather Good. And Rather Good was founded by Joel Veitch, that's him, and he was a sort of early internet creator who was making flash animations and silly cat videos and putting them on the internet, and it was really, really successful, and they were very shareable, so this is in the early 2000s. And I've got a couple examples of his work and his team's work, and these clips will give you maybe a little bit of insight into some of the idiosyncratic tone and humor and anarchic vibes that fed into making what we think is a quite exciting kids show. So some of his work to follow.
I've got a tiny chainsaw in my pocket. It's easy to start it, but it's hard to stop it. You can cut tiny trees to make tiny houses, but be careful when you put it back in your trousers. It goes
So that's Tiny Chainsaw, another one of Joel's. A bit more bright and colorful, this one. But equally bloody. Hey, stallion explosions.
Hey, I'm going to see Tin Minchin this evening.
Oh, that sounds nice. Where are you taking him?
To my special dungeon for Antipodean comics.
Sounds like a fun dungeon.
Bungeon.
Alien robots! Oh no, they're not actually alien robots.
Last one.
Cake is very lovely, yes, you know it's very nice. It isn't made of onions and it isn't made of rice. It isn't made of meat or brains or eyes or teeth or squid. It doesn't contain puffins, so we'd like it if it did. Cake is really fabulous, it's the best thing of all. It's got no slugs or smells in it, no marmosets at all. Got no worms or maggots in a yogurt that's compact. It's got no cats or weasels, but we like it if it had.
I like cake.
Cake, 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 yeah.
I like cake.
Cake, 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 yeah.
I like cake.
Cake, 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 cake.
So yeah, so that was Joel, and that was that's you could see why we were attracted to him and thought this is the guy that should make a kids show. But you know what Rather Good was a collective of independent creatives and comedians and musicians who sort of came together and just started making stuff and put it out there on the internet. And while it was 10, 15 years ago, it kind of is very relevant, that story today, of just getting together with a group of friends, making stuff, putting it out there, and what you find funny, hopefully other people will find funny as well. And along the way, they started thinking about sort of kids comedy, and started having kids, and by far and away, one of the most popular things they created was this short film or collection of short films called Dinosaurs, Terrible Lizards. And so the idea behind Dinosaurs, Terrible Lizards was that the word dinosaur actually means terrible lizard, sort of etymologically. And so they thought, well, what if dinosaurs weren't like terrible as in like rawr, but terrible as in just crap at being dinosaurs, and so, or bad at being dinosaurs. And so was born this animated short film called Terrible Lizards. And this is really three guys, four if you count Jamie, who did the music, coming together, making stuff. And this is the first animation test of what would become Bad Dinosaurs.
Apatosaurus is one of the largest dinosaurs, feeding exclusively on leaves and shrubs. Their immensely long necks allow them to reach more succulent foliage, inaccessible to smaller animals. Triceratops may be a peaceful herbivore, but its horns can prove deadly when the males compete for a mate. Defeat means death, but even victory can come at a price. There are other perils here too. Allosaurus is hunting for his next meal. With a head weighing over a ton and jaws packed with dagger-like teeth, he is a formidable threat. The Triceratops herd senses danger and stampede to safety. Apatosaurus is slower to react, however, one of the drawbacks of having such a small brain so far from its body.
So that was Terrible Lizards, and they put that out on YouTube, and it was quite popular, and I think they had sort of 30 million views by the time we came along, and so it was really sort of something you could look at and see. There's great humor, there's fun character designs, and it's absolutely something that could be translated into a really great show. I'm just going to show one other little short that they made in that phase as well. This one came along slightly later, but you'll see because it influenced a lot of the early work that we did in development.
Charlotte, the pterodactyl, waits with the patience of a statue for a glimpse of her prey. However, here in the Mesozoic, every hunter is also somebody else's next meal. This time, the terrifying strength of Tyrannosaurus Rex, this one called Janet, has proved no match for Charlotte's brains and agility.
So you can see it's funny little stories, simple to tell, relatively simple animation. You know, just that a couple of people, talented people, could put together and make and put out. And so when my business partner Dan and I were looking for projects to take and try and develop and try and pitch, we thought this one was absolutely perfect. It felt like rock solid in terms of its appeal, the tone, humor, and something that we could really build off. And incidentally, Joel and Dan had met at a film festival in Sao Paulo a number of years previous, when they both had short films that were showing, and they were both supported by the British Council to take their short films to festivals. And so it's a really great case study of getting out there in the early stage, trying to figure out how to make stuff with friends, getting a short film made, getting out into the circuit, and meeting people who you could then collaborate with down the line. And when we came to meet back with Joel, they had been trying to develop it as a TV series and had been going at it for 4 or 5 years and really hadn't had much luck, because it had just a lot of false starts, really. It wasn't anything to do with their ideas. It was just this stuff is hard to get over the line and into production. But we really had confidence in it. So we sat with the guys and worked through making a pitch deck that we could take out. We sort of talked about the tone and humor of the show, some of the response that it had on Netflix, some comparables of other shows that were out there that we thought did really well, characters and storylines. And we took it over to Netflix, and it was just, I had known somebody who was working in an animation studio who had got a job at Netflix, who was kind enough to put me in touch with the right person in the right department. And this was at a phase when Netflix was really in a phase of trying to find interesting and exciting projects from producers. I think things are slightly different now, but at that stage they were like, oh, if we find a great project, we really want to get behind it, we're going to go all in on some original content. And so they were kind enough to take us into funded development. They saw the sort of things in it that we saw, and so that development included a process where we would make a pilot script, we'd build an animatic, a storyboard animatic of the full episode. We'd create a more detailed pitch deck, full Bible of the production and all the characters and storylines. We'd go find production partners, where we created a request for proposals to go out to various animation studios, and ultimately we'd find an animation partner that would create a proof of concept. and have fully visualized what the show would look like, as well as a lot of production planning around budgeting and scheduling. And so, so we spent 18 months doing that. This was all in 2019 when COVID was sort of going mad, and in between sort of lockdowns, we managed to get people together for some writers' rooms, some people working remote because of COVID, some people able to come together, and we would meet with lots of animation creatives, directors, storyboard artists, designers, animation partners to try and explore, okay, how could we take this show from these great, original, indie short films and develop them into a really exciting, high quality feature. This is just another sort of recap of some of the development work we did, exploring the hierarchy of all the sort of ensemble of the cast, who the core characters were, and getting a little bit more. We're sort of honing in a little bit more around who our core lead characters of the show were going to be, which ultimately would become Janet and her chicks. And then we started working with Abel and Baker. And this is where the visual development really took a massive leap forward, because their team was able to, like, one of the reasons that we were really attracted to working with Carlos and his team was because we felt that this project was going to be as important to them as it was to us. It was our debut show on Netflix, and for them it mattered equally that this show looked and felt great. And obviously they'd done an episode of the first season of Love, Death and Robots, which we thought looked fantastic, and so we knew from a quality point of view the animation was going to look great, and so it proved to be. At the end of that development process, we produced a proof of concept, which you'll recognize story-wise from the earlier thing, and you can kind of tell where we're sort of moving towards as we're developing the show.
For this desperate mother, the situation now seems utterly hopeless.
So, you know, retaining a lot of that sort of early sort of fun and humorous sensibilities, but moving things along up a big step in terms of the sort of visual quality. And with all of that together, all that work put together, we sort of had a good few months of sort of sweating and waiting for the sort of thumbs up. But ultimately, we did get a green light from Netflix. And, you know, I always think about, you know, Malcolm Gladwell says that 10,000 hours is the magic number for greatness. So the meaning behind this really is quite simple. So to be considered truly an expert in something, you have to spend 10,000 hours practicing it. Well, this took 20,000 days in our last sort of count to make, and it sort of broke down like this, which is our team at Snafu looking after the writing, storyboarding, editing, music, some of the character design we shared, and then Abel and Baker picking up with the sort of environment design and asset building and layout and animation and all that sort of stuff, getting right through to final composited images. Those would come back to us, and our editorial team would sort of fine cut and fine tune those edits based on that. And then we'd simultaneously be doing voiceover records. So all of the characters' voices in the show, while it's non-dialogue, are all performed by a cast that we found that performed really to picture very emotive, expressive performances. And I think that helps to reinforce the engagement with the characters and all that. And then we did the final mix in audio, as well as the sort of grade and final picture post in London. The writing process, so this was really a quite intricate, long, and interesting phase of work. So really important for us to have all of our key characters growing over the course of the show. So we wanted to have an arcing story that started with this slightly dysfunctional family that over the course of the show they become a slightly more fit for purpose unit that all kind of they're not standard, but they kind of learn to appreciate one another, work together. In the beginning of the show they lose their home, they find a new one, they traverse the Mesozoic and find a new one by the end. And so we had this big arching story, but we've also got these 7-minute episodes, and each episode had to have a specific character who would be, oh, this is a Janet episode, this is a Charlotte episode, who is the protagonist of each individual episode. And then, as I mentioned, they were stitched together in 3s, so each block of 3 also had to have its own sort of evolution as a story or move the narrative forward in a certain way. And so we spent a lot of time working in our writer's room, putting all sorts of tape and post-its and pictures and everything on the wall that we could sort of map out the story. And it was great because we just found a new office in a space where we didn't really care that much about ruining all the walls. And you know, we just put post-it after post-it on the walls to try and figure out, okay, take it all down, put it all up again, and evolve the story over quite a long writing process. We talked about a 3-act structure a lot, where we would start at the beginning of an episode with a sense of an equilibrium. There would be some sort of inciting incident that would kick off a journey throughout the episode. We didn't really have much in terms of the sort of B plots because they were secondary stories, but certainly had that midpoint setback, a resolve towards the end, an exciting climax, and the end of each episode again would take the narrative for that character, would move a step forward in their journey. We did the writing process in-house. I think a lot of shows are written where you can send, you have writers that are all kind of distributed, you give them a brief, they go off, they pitch a story idea, they write an episode, but because we wanted this really intricately woven story structure, it turned out to be easier to have 3 writers working in a writer's room continuously. We had a couple of additional writers come in once a week for fresh eyes and to poke holes in the stories that the guys have been trying to work on for the whole week. Nat, our head writer, wrote a 40-page writer's Bible for all the characters, how the stories work and everything. We wrote, initially we'd have sort of beats to nail the causality of a story, and then that get written up into a 2- or 3-page script. And we often talk about the story circle, which it's basically a sort of version of the hero's journey. You know, it starts with a character, is in their sort of comfort zone, and they have a want or a need that kicks off a journey where they go out and enter an unfamiliar situation, and they search and they struggle and they have to adapt in order to find what they want, and then they suffer and ultimately make a sacrifice to take whatever they want, and they return back at the end in a familiar situation having changed fundamentally for it. And so we could sort of chart our characters' journeys along that wheel, and you know, we often, wherever possible, will go and sort of try to take other things that people had sort of put out into the world as guides for some of this stuff. So one of them is Dan Harmon, who has sort of popularized this, and you can see this video on YouTube, and he does a great explainer of how he uses this story wheel to talk about episodes of Rick and Morty.
Episode 202. Morty's circle is that he exists in comfort until he finds out that Rick is an arms dealer.
You sell weapons to killers for money? Ugh, you've got what the intergalactic call a very planetary mindset, Morty.
This is an ethical quandary for Morty.
You know, you did a bad thing selling that gun, but you could undo it if you wanted.
That makes him go across a threshold and search for a way to undo the ethical damage that he perceives Rick as doing. So that's why he takes Rick's car keys, and then he goes and accidentally kills the assassin, but saves Fart.
He saved my life.
What?
I am in great pain.
Morty, don't do it. Morty, you idiot. Oh, crap. Let's get you out of here.
The second half of the story, we start finding out that the act of saving that life is going to cost a lot of other people their lives.
How do you feel about all these people that are getting killed today because of your choices? I did the right thing, Rick.
We cross a return threshold, getting Fart to his portal.
I'm going to miss you.
We will be back for your cleansing.
Cleansing?
At which point Morty realizes that saving Fart's life is going to cost all carbon-based life.
You said yourself that life must be protected even through sacrifice.
So Morty makes the decision to change into someone who's willing to kill, just because. It's a bad show. It's a bad show for kids.
So ours was a good show for kids. But I mean, we really hung on to these ideas of being able to say, okay, how is our story charting across these story circles? And it would lead us to a point where we'd have a really strong log line and a strong story structure. You know, this story is a story that this happens, and then because of that this happens, because of that this happens, and we have our pull through at the end to the next episode. And that was all great. And then in the another piece that kind of was a writing hurdle was thinking about the ending of the show and how to end the show. Michael Arndt has another great thing on YouTube. It's a very long sort of dissection of what sort of story structures work and how story structures work well. And there's a particular sort of thing about endings that we kind of tried to look at and say, okay, how can we create a really exciting ending to the show that has some sort of key beats where we've got Judas moments, kamikaze moments, despair, redemption, all these sorts of key moments of excitement kind of give us a really satisfying ending to the show. And so for the ending, the writers, you know, in the writer's room, it's tricky because you're writing things down on a piece of paper and you've got an idea of what it's going to look like. But for the ending of the show, they made a little diorama for us to use to pitch to Netflix. I've done a little cut down of it. I'll see how much time we've got to I play it all.
In this version of the finale, we wanted a really simple, clear story with fewer elements told more spectacularly. So before this episode, we've set up that Begbie hates Janet, so Begbie forms a plan. Episode 22, Kidnap. In an attempt to get revenge on Janet, Begbie snatches Trevor and all of the other children from the valley. Janet tries to free the chicks, but as she's pulling at them with her mouth, Begbie and the other residents of the valley appear behind her. It looks like Janet is eating the children, and Begbie whips up the crowd against her, cackling as he does. His plan has worked perfectly. What will Janet do to convince the valley that she's not a child thief? Episode 23, The Parent Trap. The parents of the valley form a circle around Janet and take turns attacking her in their own funny ways. Roger uses fast attacks, Helen hoots angrily, as Janet does her best to defend herself. As she does, way off in the distance, the volcano goes off. Janet must choose between winning the fight and saving the children from the volcano. Janet breaks free of the circle, leaps a newly formed and widening ravine of lava, and saves the children by smashing the hardened mud and tossing the kids to their parents. The parent dinosaurs bellow their gratitude, and Begbie howls as he realizes his plan has been foiled. However, when she jumped the ravine, Janet left Egg behind. Episode 24, Mr. Lava Lava. Janet watches helplessly as the lava rises and Begbie moves towards Egg. The ground starts crumbling and breaking beneath them, splitting into lava islands, separating Begbie from Egg. At that moment, a fireball lands in the water park, and all of the valley dinosaurs flee with their children. Trevor takes one look at the advancing lava and another at the retreating dinosaurs and runs off with them. Oh, Trevor, you massive disappointment. Begbie and Janet race for Egg, while two hench raptors hold Uno and Dora and make them watch what's going on. Begbie snatches Egg and places Piggy in the middle with Janet across the lava islands before jumping back onto solid ground. As Janet drifts past, he locks eyes with her, making her watch him drop Egg. But there's a commotion. The cavalry have arrived. Begbie laughs. It's just Trevor riding Ollie and the other kids. Ha! He drops Egg, but Trevor, small and swift, skitters between his legs and grabs Egg before it hits the lava, running off with it. Once Egg is safe, Janet advances on Begbie, lifts him in her mouth, and hurls him over to a lava cauldron. Splosh, which I assume is the noise lava makes. He emerges, screeching, and is hit by a huge lava flow. Lava is pouring into the water park. Everyone has to run for their lives through the ravine, escaping at the very last minute. Looking back, see the water park completely swallowed by lava. Later, we return to find the lava has created great new slides and features, and a Begbie statue carbonized in the kiddie pool with only his peachy bum exposed. And everyone has a great time. Splash!
So yeah, so that was that's the ending of the show there, and what's really helpful for the guys to kind of be able to visually convey what the idea was for the ending, and we'll show you a bit of it, and you'll see we had to make some adjustments for scope reasons, but predominantly this early version of the ending kind of carried all the way through to the finale of the show. And so once we've got all the scripts ready, we've got buy-in from Netflix on the ending of the show and all the stories, we move through to the story team and the storyboard artists. And I had to say, with a show like this, especially because there's no dialogue, it's extra important that the story team could really deliver on sort of uplifting what were great story beats and great characters and great ideas into a fully realized visual story. And we had on this show, we had a team of 4 or 5 storyboard artists, mostly in-house in our studio in London, along with 3 editors working on the show. We had a few extra people as we dragged in towards the end just to get everything done. But that was the sort of core team of 7 or 8 creatives in the story team. And they did an amazing job to construct the storyboard animatics. And so I don't have enough time to talk more about the story team. I'm going to hand over to Joel really quick to tell you a little bit about the story and also the audio.
Storyboard artists, head of story, and the director work to turn those into visual storyboards, and then those boards get cut by an editor into an animatic, which is storyboards kind of up to time with demo audio. We try and do all our editing bar very fine tweaks. Then that goes off to Madrid to Abel and Baker, where it's animated. They work closely with the director to get every shot right. Those completed shots go back into the edit, and then we have an edit. During this time, obviously, we've recorded voice, so that's making sure that all our sound effects work, and then we finalise it. So it's quite a long process.
That's the story audio process. The one thing I would also add into this audio thing is that was a whole nother layer that elevated the show, elevated the performances, and as you saw there, we had actors who were performing the whole scenes. That was Joel and his daughter. His daughter Tallulah played Trevor, as well as some other characters in it. But we also had a voice cast of folks who had backgrounds in motion capture and like doing sort of Planet of the Apes style motion capture characters, because they knew how to use physicality and voice in tandem to give off a really animalistic performance, which is quite interesting. We also had stand-up comics doing some of the voices. We had kids' TV voice actors, a whole smorgasbord of people, and I think we were fortunate enough on this project to be able to open that casting phase up to whoever was going to create the best and most exciting voice for the show. So that's all the bits that we did in London, and I guess I'll hand over to Carlos to talk about where the real exciting stuff happened. Huh?
Thank you, Paul. And thank you very much for the introduction, by the way. Now I'm switching, que puedo hablar mucho mejor.
Because I can speak much better Spanish than English, so it will be better for all. So let me start by introduce myself, because, well, he did introduce me, but I also like to have the opportunity to introduce myself. I'm Carlos Tschuschke, founder of Abla Baker, which is what I lead. I do the artistic work, and lately I also do production, executive production. But I try to participate where I can. I'm lucky enough to work in a place, Abel and Baker, that has great flexibility, and I feel very fortunate for that. This project, I mean, if you look at the sequence of the lava, if I had seen that before, I don't think we would have done it. We started with this series and we had many challenges. In Abel and Baker, we had done a series. We hadn't done any series. We had done cinematics, some shorts, and some advertising. But we had to face the first challenge, which is that we had never faced this type of project, 180 minutes, and we had never worked in this manner.
El reto es que teníamos
The second challenge is that we had lots of characters to do. Looking at what he had developed, looking at the story, we had lots of characters to work on. Some on 2 legs, 4 legs, others no legs. They're insects that walk and fly. I mean, they had a great time thinking about them. And why did we know? What did we think we should start with? Well, we had a strength.
or a fixed point. We could start with the T-Rex family, because the T-Rex family, Janet, all the dinosaurs have a name. So if I said Janet instead of the mum, then you know why. This is Janet, this one here. So it was clear for us, because we had been working in the proof of concept, that you've seen, that you can't see it too well either, but it was difficult to do it. And it was the design from which we knew we could start. Once Janet was quite decided, then we moved on to her chicks. Trevor, including some of the traits of his personality, which is something that we missed from the previous designs. Dora, which is the tougher one more similar to his mum, and Yuno, who's this one, who's a bit more head in the clouds. When we finished, we knew that we had a strength in terms of our design. We knew where to start from, and we had a family from which to start to work. At the beginning, it was going to be pink, but we also looked at different colors just to be sure that the family worked properly in this pink-purple scheme. Once we were clear about the designs, we put a 3D, we put some shading, lights. And once this had been solved, then the process that we all know, right? We started doing some animation tests.
Para saber, o sea, como de extremos, como podéis ver, no son rigging final.
So this is not final rigging. His eyebrow, Trevor's eyebrow is not right there. We just wanted to explore the animation style that we were going to use for this 180 minutes. So we had it ready. Now we just needed another 30 characters left. There was something that we really liked in this series, and we felt really fortunate to have this project in our hands, because it is so fun. Why? Because they're quite crazy, the people who thought of it, as you can see. So we thought the characters were very attractive, very colorful, basic shapes. We like that. But I think many times in the meetings that we had with them, we said to them that it felt that every character came from a different show, and we had to start defining a style that could bring them all together. In order to find that style, that wasn't so easy going either. We had lots of development of different characters with different lines. We worked with Naho in this too, and we also did explorations of everything. I don't know how many explorations of insects there are, lots. We have here Begbie, who's the Velociraptor, the bad one. And just a few design ideas. In the end, as you can see, we stayed with the number 2 or 6. And once we were clear about the development of the characters in 2D, then we started working in 3D. We did the modeling, the shading, well, you know it. We had characters of middle size, but then we had immense, very large characters. Let me show you this little clip so that you can see the scale of the characters. And why am I talking about the scale? Because there was something very important in terms of the level of detail. We wanted to be quite consistent. We couldn't model each character if then we wanted to scale it up to bigger ones. So we had to have a good balance in sense of the detail we were giving to each of the characters, regardless of the size.
Es que la he tenido que dejar esta parte.
I had to put this to show you.
Bueno, pues iríamos a los grandes y luego a los pequeñitos.
So we have the big ones and the small ones, being consistent in terms of the level of detail that the characters had, the large characters. The smaller ones are the most loving ones. They're so cute.
Yo es que creo que mi secuencia favorita esa.
This is one of my favorite scenes.
Is it Joel?
Is it Joel?
So now we have all the characters, then we had to put them in a lineup in order not to have scale problems in the future, so that we didn't have to put them in beam or doing all those things that are not good. So this is the lineup, as varied as this. I have seen many and never one like this. I think we have 4 pixels here. Nearly 4, I promise. And look at that. Look at Emily. I don't know what kind of species that one is, the big one. Anyway, so we had lots of characters and many different challenges to face, especially, well, actually in every aspect. We have some characters with hair, with CFX, all the feathers move. We wanted a maximum number of permissiveness to do CFX, otherwise we'll be crazy, we'll still be doing it. We have lots of complex characters and about 70 character variations when they get dirty, when they dress up, etc. So this was the rigging for Vexy, this character. Quite difficult. Then we have some hidden controls. Well, I guess. I don't know. I've never done this one. And here we have a little animation test of Vexy with her feathers. I'm gonna go backwards and forwards because it doesn't go into a loop. I'm sorry, the PowerPoint.
Bueno, el siguiente reto. Ya tenemos.
The next challenge. So we have the characters more or less ready. We know what they're going to do, or that's what we thought. The next challenge
Que vamos a tener, pues, por la...
was the environment, because of course, you knew that there was quite a lot of expectation regarding where they were going to move into. We knew that the world was going to be very demanding, very complex. It was going to be difficult to create all those different settings. There were some peculiarities that they told us about, such as the type of vegetation. We cannot put grass because in the Pleistocene, well, I guess it was that era, there was no grass. So we put moss that could, different varieties, as you can see here. But we had to actually try to be reliable. There's not many trees because there were no trees at the time. So the art team did a lot of research. Moreover, we knew that it's not like in other projects we've seen or other projects we've worked on, where we have neighborhoods to go to. They go to certain neighborhoods when the characters talk, or they go to a specific place. No, in this series, we had something which was more complex for us, which was we were traveling from a volcanic area, then you get to a peak, mountain peak, then to a salt desert, you find a cave, that takes you to the water park, is what this environment was called. It's like thermal springs. After these thermal springs, we found another area we call the green and pleasant land, where the characters find their home. Then we went to find the inside or the interior of this land, which was like a cave. And we're going to have a cave environment that's different, and we're going to have different locations within the green and pleasant land. And then we're going to have settings scenes under the water. We'll be on the beach, and we even had the inside of dinosaur's mouth. And this is going to make it even more graphic, but I had heard something about the lava and a volcano, but it wasn't so clear to me. Lava, is it going to be done? And they were like, I don't know, we will try, I said. But how? How did we decide to face this challenge? What we did was to create different ecosystems. We did a library of flowers, plants, palm trees, mushrooms. So we did libraries of objects depending on the ecosystem we were working on. We have some examples of the volcanic area. And with those, we set up what we call the compounds. And what's a compound? Given that we wanted everything to be artistically directed, didn't want any weird things, because that doesn't happen in nature. If you take a picture, if you look at the palm tree, well, they don't make up a perfect image as you would expect, but we wanted everything to make sense. So we created these elements in these compounds, and then in a procedural manner we filled in the gaps with other areas, with moss, with grass, whatever. We had different versions. In high and low. In low had no grass or anything like that, in order to activate it, or put it on or off depending. And here we have one compound, I think he said.
Esa texturilla,
So those textures, anyway. So we had everything under control, we thought, so we knew about the characters, how they moved, the scenes or the settings, we knew the technique we were going to work with. And then we went from something that looked like this, which was a compound concept, like on a prototype. We started opening it up. We tried to be coherent in the level of detail, and it was a lot of headache to do this, really. I know I keep saying it, but it was important. For instance, the level of detail on the floor, it has to be coherent with the rest in order to be able to have a very large panoy shot. Here you can see walk along those environments we created. No audio? Can we have audio, please?
Y esta es la gracia. Bueno, pues nada, más o menos.
Anyway, at least you've seen the different environments. And that's all, basically. We had all the key areas of the project under control, we said. Not that we had seen that when we developed it, but at least it started making sense in our heads. So we did over 1,000 elements for those compounds, the flowers, leaves, all those things that you've seen. And we did it by hand, obviously. What happened? This is what happened. When we were going to develop and start develop the series, the Unreal 5 came out, and we've all seen this video, right? With Lumen and I, global lighting in real time, and we thought, well, why don't we do it in Unreal? Is it possible? We started thinking about it. Once we already knew which way to go, we decided that it was worthwhile also looking into other paths because, as you know, technology plays a key role in the work we do. So we had the next challenge, and this is something that came off the cuff. We wanted to light Unreal, so we needed to develop a new pipeline. Our team, our animation team, have never worked in real time before. Well, that's very important. We had only heard about how good Unreal was. They told us he's excellent, everything works well, he's super quick. And after a few years working on this, you know that problems will come up. So what I was scared was about not knowing what those problems would be. So I'm going to go just quickly over this because this is not a technical talk, obviously. But I'm going to summarize. They would kill me actually if they knew, but I'm going to summarize the pipeline into this. We received a story. I'm really sorry with the sound, we can hardly hear him. In Mesh, we prepared a layout with different proxy geometries, as you can see, so that the scene was light. Of layout. From the layout we go to animation, we will have again the proxy geometry to work well. And this is the joke. All of this is in the mesh or Maya. Here we have a tool that what it does is selects episodes, sequences, shots. We go to the stage we're working on. In this case is this. And we create a ESD scene, which is very quick. You export the USD, and when you export the USD, you can go into Unreal. And you can go into Unreal, and there were some things that we hadn't realized. And this can be subdivided.
Nosotros podíamos seleccionar estos niveles de subdivisión.
So we found a subdivision here. We could break it down in our editor. Then we put it into Unreal, we put the shot with our tools, and we have the shot working. The shot is rendered, and this same shot, this is the dressing within Unreal with Skydo, but it's looking differently now. The lighting team picks it up and starts making it fun. So, a tough path, but it was worthwhile, and we did it. Just quickly, I'm going to go over some of the slides because I think it's worthwhile mentioning this, which is what is hardly ever mentioned. I said that we had only heard about good things about real time, and we have bad things. We have the rendered artifacts. I think there are so many. We spend so much time dealing with render artifacts as with other problems, or with the scenes themselves, in fact. I was going to sum up the render, but we are out of time. But what matters is that we overcome them. We had a wiki where the artists could go in, and at the beginning the wiki had a page, then 1,000 pages, and the artists could go in and look at the mistake the scene was giving them, the error, to see how to solve it. We renderized 3 hours with much faster, so for us it was incredible, the speed of the rendering. I had a little demo, but I won't be able to show you, but we did a little Unreal demo. We wanted to try with the same assets of the series, with the same scenes of the series. We wanted to make it, to have a pilot project on a computer, on a laptop. And then finally I would like to thank the CFX and the FX teams, because we had a huge amount of effects, and we are not going to have time otherwise to watch any more episodes. So that's all. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here, and thank you very much to the whole team from both of our teams. Thank you for making this possible.
Si alguien tiene alguna pregunta.
If you have any questions, This is the time to ask questions if you have any. Really? I was so boring, was I? I'm really sorry, without the microphone we won't be able to translate. Let's wait for the microphone. 1 sec, you have to wait for the microphone also for streaming and the interpreters.
Es que si no, en streaming no escuchan lo que preguntan.
Otherwise they won't hear what you say. You worked in 3D by using Maya, right? Yes, for the first stage we used Maya, and then for the rest we used Unreal and effects in Houdini. In 3D I don't know a lot about it, but I thought that the Render is better than Maya. I don't know to what extent that's true. Well, once you've worked doing 3D for a while, you realize that there's no software better than others. Blender is free, is great, it has fantastic tools, but in my opinion, the bad thing about Blender is that there is not enough people with a high professional knowledge. So we urge everyone to use it because it's great for all the studios. It's free software is really good, something which is really good, but unfortunately nowadays we haven't been able to produce with it. It's not whether it's better or worse. The tools are the same though. One is free and the other one is paid for, right? So from a student perspective, Blender would be better than Maya, right? At least to start. I'm not here to sell software, but there are student versions for all types of software, I believe. There are software editions for students. I don't use it. I think I haven't used that 3D software, specific one, but I would urge everyone to use it, not because it's better or worse. It's just a tool. It's like having a pencil or ink, right? I mean, just different ways of doing things. I have a question about the characters design, the mom and the kids. I imagine that they are a T-Rex, right? And what I found interesting is that they have feathers. So I had never seen a T-Rex with feathers. Yeah. Really, this was inherited from the project that you have seen. I think the creators also thought that it was curious because it's interesting. I'm not an expert on dinosaurs, I have to say, but there have been several versions. When I was a kid, that was, well, it doesn't matter when that was, we've always seen T-Rex drawn in a specific way. Then they said that maybe they came from the birds. And that was also a theory that they descended from birds. But then another current came and said that they didn't have feathers. So I don't know whether they had feathers or not. Yeah, the thing is that when you look at the films and you see T-Rex, you normally see it like a very fearing, it's very scary. But with the feathers, it doesn't look scary. Yeah, this is what we liked. That why they liked the Snafu project, because we saw dinosaurs as we hadn't seen them before, colorful, geometric. Whether they had feathers or not, I am sure they didn't have 3 at the back of the neck. So we thought that was really funny.
Le doy yo por aquí.
Hola.
Hola.
Era solo para
Hi, I just wanted to ask you if we could be interns. Okay, we have interns, yes, but I don't know. I don't know, maybe we can talk about it later. I don't know what to tell you. I'm sure in the hall they'll come to talk to you. Yes, there's people. We have interns, obviously, yes, in the studio, but I don't know how often they come or anything. I don't know.
Hay una pregunta ahí.
There is a question down there. Hi. My question is about characters designs, because we were really curious that they were so geometric and their shapes were very, like, taken to the extreme, we could say. And yeah, Emily, for instance, I'm sure it must have been quite fun to do those characters designs. Yeah, I mean, had you finished? Yes, sorry, I wasn't sure. Yes, the team had a great time, but most of it came from, Emily, in fact, I think is the character that looks the most like the original concept, that pyramid, sorry, that you saw at the beginning. That's the original design that they worked with it and stuff, and then we took it on. And I think that's one of the key issues when designing the characters. Then making them fit into a specific style was fun. But yes, we really enjoyed it. We really like them. Thank you. A last question, okay? And then we move on.
Hola. Mi pregunta es, porque es como un proyecto como...
My question is that this is a bit of an international project for you, right? Yes. So, what was it like having a more international, you have an international and a more national work? Did they let you do whatever you wanted? What was the supervision like? No, they didn't. There's also the language barrier and the time barrier. So,
Tanto porque
well, time barrier not so much because Snafu is in the UK, in London. It's an hour only. The language barrier, well, little by little, you get used to it. And then in the end, there's always ways. I mean, we're talking about animated cartoons. We are not talking of launching a rocket to the moon. So it's not that terrible. And obviously, of course, it's difficult and it's a bit of a pain to have a character approved because it's not just the people from Snafu. It's that they want to make sure that we are all doing the series like they imagine it, but it's not only them. Then there's Netflix. Snafu was able to manage that quite well, but it's difficult, obviously. I mean, I can't compare it to other projects because this is our first series. So, from my own experience, I can't say much more. But creative freedom, not so much. We had freedom to explore, propose. There are many good ideas that you can negotiate. Also, things evolve with time, right? It's a normal creative process. But then we have to approve, and approving it wasn't that easy. Okay?
Pues muchísimas gracias.
Well, thank you very much, Carlos and Paul. Big round of applause for them again, and thank you for